Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Wigan Fan TV. Leeds versus Wigan preview this week. We're joined by Matt McCauley in the bottom corner. Hi, Matt.
Hiya.
Gareth Davis, who looks like he's sporting a Mascot Brown special there, which is what PNG top you've got on?
Yeah, Papua New Guinea, mate. I always try to dig a rare one out for you.
Yeah, and in the top corner is Joe Smith, who joins us as the designated Leeds fan this week. And Joe, you have a website which is called Get 'Em Onside. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about the website? And perhaps I know this week you've done an interview with Stevie Ward, which I haven't read yet, but tell us a little bit about that.
Well, Stevie Ward's actually one of the interviews I was really keen to do when I first started the site, which was back in October last year, because I myself had mental health issues. And rugby league's a big thing in helping me get better, to be honest. Going to watch the Rhinos last year, people like Stevie Ward, Callum Watkins with their mental health openness, really. So yeah, Stevie Ward's a big interview for me last week, and it was just brilliant. Sitting down talking to him about rugby, about an hour and a half I was with him, it was just brilliant. And I guess I started the site partially to fill my time, but then as it started to grow a bit more, I was realising there wasn't that many big interviews, extensive interviews with players. And that's something I enjoy doing quite a bit. So I've spoken to legends like Barry Mack, Paul Sculthorpe, who's probably not a legend to you lot, but anyway. And then players at the minute like Stevie Ward, Grant Millington, coach down at York, James Ford, he was really good one. James Clare was the first one at Cass I did. They were all really enjoyable, just really decent people. So rugby, it's helped me a lot doing my site, conquering mental health issues, and now I'm just loving going to games, different clubs all the time, enjoying rugby, enjoying life, and my site's helping me do that, really. So, yeah.
Perfect. That's great to hear, Joe, and well done on that. And the website is basically getemonside.com, is that right?
Getemonside.blog.com, yeah.
Getemonside.blog.com. We'll put a link out later. But so Joe's here in his guise as Get 'Em Onside, and he's our designated Leeds fan for this week. George asked the question straight away. Any truth from Williams to Catalan? We'll get onto that in just a second, George. I know I've sort of teased a lot of people with that, and I've spoken to the club today, and I will sort of confirm that in a couple of minutes. But I'm interested, first of all, we'll start with you, Matt. The news announced today that Shaun Wane is going to the Scottish Rugby Union side as a high-performance coach. We thought that might be the case, that he may go there at some point when we've done the various discussions. What's your initial reaction to that? Do you think it's a good move for him?
Potentially, it's a good move for him. Yeah, I mean, that rumour's been knocking around a bit, hasn't it? And as soon as I heard it, I thought, oh, that doesn't sound good. And it's not good. It's a loss to rugby league. That's the bottom line. Especially when there was the counter rumour of him maybe going to Catalan. And I just, in my head, I thought, what's better, going to Catalan, the beautiful south of France, or a few years of shortbread sandwiches, deep fried porridge, which means he'll probably end up laying Scotch eggs. And I don't know, personally I'd have chosen Catalan, but maybe he likes his deep fried porridge.
Maybe
what is a high performance coach?
What was that, sorry, Matt?
What is a high-performance coach? I've read that press release about 3 times. I can't quite pin down what exactly it is he's going to be doing.
It sounds like a perfect job for a part-time job for somebody who's just become a grandfather and doesn't want the stress of being a Wigan coach. To me, Gareth, your thoughts and reaction to Shaun Wane being announced as the high-performance coach at Scottish RU today?
Disappointment, I think. Like Matt said, massive loss to our game. I think me and Matt did the show when it was first announced that Shaun was leaving Wigan. I think we talked about his legacy and his development with young players, and we thought that although he wasn't going to be involved with Wigan anymore, it would be good to go somewhere like Catalan and develop young players. I just think it's a big shame for our sport to lose one of our marquee coaches to rugby union. And what like Matt said, what's a high performance coach? He's gonna do nothing. Money for old rope, that is, really, which you can't blame him. You said, it's a high pressure job coaching Wigan, just like it is, and I'm sure Joe will agree, just like coaching Leeds or Saints or any of the big clubs. It's a big job. And yeah, he wants a quiet life. So I don't blame him for that. But for our sport, it's a massive loss. Huge loss, I think.
Joe, I mean, I guess obviously Shaun Wane is a former Leeds player as much as he is a former Wigan player. He doesn't have the best reputation or best view of him, I guess, outside of Wigan because he's a Wigan guy and he's Wigan pretty much through and through. What's your reaction to, first of all, Shaun Wane leaving? And I guess your own situation at Leeds at the moment. What's your view on McDermott, I guess? Would you like to see maybe a change there at Leeds?
Well, first of all, on Shaun Wane, it is a shame that he's going because the bloke's a winner. He's the winner, and he's a winner, and he polarises opinion, like you say, outside of Wigan and elsewhere. But that's good for the sport because it gets people talking. He's a winner as a coach. He was brilliant under Maguire. He's carried that on from Maguire's time with you lot. And it'll be interesting to see who you get in. I know there's been rumours about Edwards as of 2020, with possibly Winder there next year as a placeholder, essentially. But it'd be interesting to see who you get in. Regarding Leeds, the McDermott out people have been there for years, really. They were there last year in the spring, and
they were there when you won the treble.
They were there when they won the treble, and it's crackers, really. Personally, I think at the end of this year or next season might be his last ones, but that's more because it's the same voice saying the same thing at the minute, and there needs to be a bit of a change. I think they've got the new generation coming through, the youngsters getting a chance at the minute, people like Stevie Ward pushing on as the leader of the new generation, and it might be time for a change at the top in that regard. But I'm not one of the ones who says McDermott needs to go now because of the form we're in.
I mean, the thing with McDermott, I think it's like Shaun Wane, isn't it? He polarises opinion, I think, outside of, within Leeds as well as outside. But you can't argue with the fact he's a born winner. Sorry, Matt, you were going to just say something there as well.
I was just saying, I hope Brian McDermott stays at Leeds because I like him. I particularly like, you know, when his eyes kind of glaze over and he starts talking complete bobbins, like Mr. Ryan.
And he knows
those interviews he does.
Yeah.
I love
he gives
those.
some very interesting interviews, doesn't he?
He's almost
he's worth entertaining.
He's testing out the interviewers, really. I think, seeing if they've got the bottle to ask a big question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I guess that time will come, won't it? When McDermott leaves Leeds, it's a natural course of sport, and that might be this year, it might be next year, and we'll come on to, obviously, we're here to preview the Leeds game. And we'll come on to that in just a second in as much detail as possible. Now, one of the strange stories I thought that broke on last night, Sunday night seems to be the night when all the rumours break because League Express gets released and League Weekly gets released. And I've strange rumours. George Williams to Catalans. And then later today was Thomas Luluai to Catalans. Somebody has asked me the question here, George Briscoe, any truth from Williams to Catalan? Well, I can tell you, George, I had an email correspondence with Chris Radlinski today on a completely different subject. And to put it bluntly, George Williams is not going anywhere. So I've got the email open here to quote exactly what Chris Radlinski said. And I won't say the whole email, but basically George Williams, his quote on that is, he is here long term. And that was it. I then sort of replied to him, and I didn't ask any question on the Thomas Luluai one. I can't really repeat his reply about the Thomas Luluai question, just in case my grandmother watches at any point. But let's just say Thomas Luluai to Catalan rumour is utter rubbish as well, and I think it's a little bit of lazy journalism from the League Express. And I think if anybody's looking for rumours, I think one of the big issues that people have at this moment in time is that there's lots of rumours, isn't there? And every single player that Wigan seem to have is just going to be linked with Catalan. George Williams is basically taking photographs of him, or he's taking photographs of himself with Louis Tierney in the south of France a couple of weeks ago. The best mates. Basically, he goes to see Louis Tierney on his day off. Oliver Gildart was in Venice. Why are we not sort of linking Oliver Gildart with a move to Italian rugby union, if that's the case? That's basically what it is. People. Well, let's start. Honestly, this is where the rumours start, with no substance whatsoever. George Williams is at Wigan long term. Don't worry about it. And the other one is basically Thomas Luluai going elsewhere is a load of rubbish. So thanks, George. I hope that sort of clears it up. That's pretty much what Chris Radlinski said to me today. And I think if you want sort of reliable information, follow Phil Wilkinson on Twitter and read the Observer and the Wigan Post, because he will not go with something unless he's 100% convinced that it may happen, and he's basically said it's a load of rubbish all day today. So there you go. Hope that's cleared everything up for everyone. George Williams isn't good.
Can I just put the alternative angle on it as a journalist myself?
Yeah.
A journalist wouldn't release that. Well, I know sports journalists have sort of been beaten with a stick a little bit last week, obviously over what's happened in football with the photographing of the team sheet and all that kind of stuff. And I know myself, something similar happened. Well, I didn't get beaten with a stick, obviously, but I wrote a story about a fortnight ago about one of the local rugby union clubs down here, and the information I received, I thought was super, super reliable. It turned out to be a load of nonsense, and it sort of strained relations between the local rugby club and the local paper. So these things do happen. But I would say, in defence of the journalist, whoever wrote it, I'm not sure who wrote who. It was Matt Shaw.
It was Matt Shaw, I think, and I think
right now Matt Shaw is a respected rugby league journalist. There would have been a reasonable source within the Wigan club that would have told him about that rumour. There would have been reasons why whoever told him would have been probably friends with an agent, maybe, because let's be honest, and again, we all know how it works. Agents are a big driving force behind transfers because they line their pockets. Absolutely. Even in rugby, not as much as in football, obviously, but in rugby. So I'm pretty confident that Matt would have wrote that story in good faith. The fact it's nonsense is great, but I just to give a bit of balance before people start sort of
absolutely.
Sports journalists, he wouldn't have wrote the story if he didn't think there was a great deal of truth in it. It's not like the Sun or anything like that. Do you know what I mean? And no disrespect to the people that write in the Sun. Gary Carter is a really respected journalist. But yeah, I just thought I'd give the journalist perspective on that. But thankfully, it's nonsense.
And there you go. My grandparents are watching, so it's a good job I didn't say Chris Radlinski's but I'll forward them a copy. I'm sure they'll enjoy that. Let's talk about the Leeds game. Let's move on to the Leeds game. What's happening with Leeds? Let's get an outsider's perspective before we come to you, Joe. Matt, we were at Headingley. We enjoyed our time at Headingley. I don't know if you remember it.
Vaguely.
Yeah, apparently it was good, and I dropped you off in York off the train somewhere, and hopefully you obviously got back all right. But since then, I mean, Joe, you've won one game, is that right? You've beat Hull KR since then, basically.
Hull KR and the cup game, but yeah, that doesn't matter. Yeah, one game.
Yeah, it doesn't matter for it doesn't matter for us either. We beat somebody in the cup. Matt, from an outsider's point of view, what looks to be the issue for Leeds? Is it transition, or what is it from your point of view that's the issue at the minute?
Is it a mixture of transition and injuries at the moment? That seems to be the case. They had that wonderful side that eventually it got to the point where I think I'm right in saying that some of them were turning up to training on sponsored mobility scooters. So they had to have that clear out of some of the ageing staff. And I think they're genuinely in a transition period now. And that's been hampered with injuries. Are the changing rooms flooded?
Joe, are the changing rooms still flooded?
No, the changing rooms have changed. They've rebuilt the training ground. Apparently, very good. But
they're using the cricket ones for a while, weren't they?
Yeah, well, that's what they're using now when the stadium's getting rebuilt.
I mean, it will look like an incredible stadium once it's built. I mean, do you think? Matt, I mean, they're obviously missing Richie Meyer at the moment. There's a few players that they're missing, and I think somebody's basically put here, Paul. They can't spend the money that they could at one point, perhaps because of the stadium rebuild and things like that. Perhaps I'm not too sure. Yeah, I mean, Gareth, can you put your finger on what's wrong with Leeds at the minute?
Well, first of all, I don't think that previous comment is true. Leeds haven't spent money like that since Dougie Lawton was there, have they? I mean, they spent money.
The big thing with Leeds, I would say, is they tend to retain players. Though, if you compare that to Wigan, Watkins just signed a big deal.
Yeah, but were any of their players on mega bucks? Probably not. I mean, it's not like the lavish spending that it was once was. Not for any club in rugby, but I agree with Matt. I think they're in a bit of a transition period. And going back to what we were saying earlier, when you were asking Joe about Brian McDermott, I think Brian McDermott's done a remarkable job there because he rebuilt the side once, hasn't he? He post Peacock, who retired that year? Peacock, Carly Lewis. Who else?
Yeah, it was a big three, wasn't it?
Sinfield, wasn't it? Guys, Sinfield. How can we forget him? And they had a season where they finished in the bottom four, didn't they? To play in the qualifiers,
yeah.
And then last year they won the grand final. Well, they perhaps shouldn't have won the grand final. They weren't the best team. They were at Old Trafford, obviously. They weren't lucky to win the grand final. They just peaked at the right time and obviously took advantage of heartache and not playing in the final. But I think that's a remarkable job McDermott's done there. But the fact they've lost Danny Maguire and Rob Burrow, who were two integral parts of your team, Joe, is that a fair comment? I mean, even in their latter career, Burrow coming off the bench was dynamite, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was because he obviously started off as scrum half. He could come on and play hooker. Maguire was just a good all-round player, wasn't he? Good with the ball in his hand, good kicking.
His game management was incredible. And looking at Myler this year, attacking-wise, Myler seems to have slotted in quite seamlessly regarding kicking and passing. But his game management is nowhere near where Maguire's was. Had it been on point in the game against Wigan at Headingley, you might not have even got the chance to score those 9 points had Myler's kicking game been not good enough.
It was very negative, wasn't it, if I remember rightly, in that game? You're playing for kicking
Can I
touch.
say something as well? You boys said you enjoyed yourself at Headingley. That was the worst game I've seen in a long time. You boys must have had one too many tackles because I was falling asleep nearly. I mean, it was only the last 10 minutes that was any good, to be honest.
No, Matt's a really bad influence. That's all what there is to take from that.
I'm a bad person.
Like a really bad influence. Like he gets carried away very, very easily. Joe, from a Leeds point of view, are you concerned about the middle eights? What's the issue at this moment in time? I mean, to put it into perspective, you are 7th in the league, 15 points. Huddersfield are 8th with 15 points. Catalans are 9th with 14 points. If you lose to Wigan on Thursday, if Huddersfield beat Hull KR and Catalans beat Castleford at Catalans, which are both very probable or possible results, all of a sudden you're 9th. Are you concerned about the middle eights? Yes,
very. Being honest there, yes. I think there's only 3 more wins left in the season for Leeds, and that'd be Salford, Widnes and Wakey. I think that the rest of it is losses, to be honest. I think there's only 2-3 games other than that, possibly. I think they've been unlucky with some of the 1-point losses. You look at the points difference, to say they've lost so many games, it's in the mid-30s, negative mid-30s, which shows that there have been tight games that they've lost out on. And that comes back to the game management, like I said, and the inability to kick drop goals. And even when they did kick a drop goal like Catalan last week, they still managed to knack it up after that.
That point that you've just made, you've lost however many games by 1 point. Is that just luck, or is that, like you say, is that game management? Has that happened now too many times for this to be a coincidence?
Yes, it's happened too many times for it to be a coincidence. It's iffy game management / the team getting very, very nervous when the game's tight towards the end of it because it's missing the leadership of Maguire and Burrow, personally, I think. And especially now, you're looking at the amount of injuries they've got. They're looking at the likes of James Jones, Buchanan and Ablett, especially missing, who've been there for so long and have got the know-how to win these games, these tight games. And you've got the likes of Cam Smith in there and Stevie Ward, as Ward has been around for a few years, but they haven't got the experience possibly yet of just churning out these wins in the tight games. And like McDermott keeps saying, these young players, this season's going to help them massively because they'll learn how to deal with the adversity. But at the end, it's got to hurt a bit before it gets better, I suppose.
They'll have some decent trips anyway, won't they? Because they'll get to go to Toronto and to lose anyway.
Yeah. And Featherstone, lucky us.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, if you do play Featherstone, do you recall all your players? Who plays?
Oh yeah, stuff them.
That's a complete different issue, Featherstone and Leeds.
I think the Luke Briscoe thing's a bit of a farce, to be honest, but never mind. It's a whole different story.
Well, honestly, we could do a whole nother show on everyone's opinion, I think, of Mr. Hetherington's dual reg policy at this moment in time. Moving on to the game on Thursday night, Michael Smith asked, why have the RFL put Wigan Leeds on at the same time as England? Seriously, what's going on? Do you expect anything less? This is the RFL that you're talking about. This is why we're on the verge of Super League breaking away, because of stupid ideas like that. Absolutely ridiculous. But
I think that's Sky, not the RFL.
Yes, yeah.
But we've got to have the bottle to stand up in cases like that and just say, whoa, why on earth are we trying to compete with England, Belgium? It's just not happening, is it? Nate from RL America, Rugby League in America podcast asks, will Bateman and O'Loughlin be in the lineup after Denver? Well, we'll pass that straight over to you, Matt. Joe Greenwood was in training today. Do you expect Bateman and O'Loughlin to back up after playing in altitude in Denver? O'Loughlin played the full 80 against Hull the week before as well, which was a big ask. Do you expect to see Bateman and O'Loughlin on Thursday, which is such a short turnaround, isn't it?
I think there's more chance of seeing Bateman than there is O'Loughlin. But I don't know. It depends. It depends on their recovery, doesn't it? Because we could do with both of them in against Leeds.
They've been to some strange place today. If anyone's been on the Wigan Instagram page or Twitter page, there's like a float centre. I'm not entirely sure how it works, but it seems to sort of put you in a pool of water and you sort of float for muscle recovery. They're obviously trying their best, I think, to get them back. Hopefully Farrell's back. Matt, would you like to see Joe Greenwood get an opportunity on Thursday?
Yeah, of course. He's a new player. We all want to see him.
Yeah. Apparently, he's got the number 40 on the back of his shirt, which just highlights how many players we're going to have used this year. Gareth,
as long as he doesn't displace Romain Navarrete.
Well, I mean, Romain Navarrete, who is in sensational form, I must say, at this moment in time, and I think nobody's going to displace him at this moment in time. I mean, I think the whole game, unless Tautai was carrying a knock, or the game before that, I mean, Navarrete wasn't even considered to be dropped, and Cal Field came in for him. Gareth, would you risk Bateman and O'Loughlin after a decent flight? What will it be? 8-10 hour flight to Denver, playing at altitude in 30-degree heat, and then backing up on Thursday? Is it worth the risk?
Is it worth the risk? I agree with Matt. I don't think O'Loughlin will play. Purely because of his age. He struggles with playing back-to-back league games. So after going on that long trip, I don't think you'll see O'Loughlin. Bateman, I think you'll see Bateman. I think you'll see Joe Greenwood as well. We're going to have to see him at some point. Bearing in mind this was the guy that's basically been brought in as the replacement for Joel Tompkins, and before Tompkins, was jettisoned, told to leave, whatever happened. Joel Tompkins played in the Challenge Cup game against Warrington, and then the video was released the next day. So you almost lost the player, So as Greenwood has been brought in as a direct replacement for Tompkins, let's see him play against Leeds on Thursday.
And as Martin says here, you've got Liam Paisley to contend with. You've got Liam Farrell as well to come back in the squad. Last week, at a time, we had no back rows on the pitch, and all of a sudden we've got the option of trying to fit 5 into potentially 2 positions in the third bench position. So it's an interesting choice, I think, for Shaun Wane on Thursday night. Joe, from your point of view, from a Leeds point of view, what are you? I guess you said Leeds have got 3 wins left in them, and one of those you didn't say was Wigan on Thursday night. I mean, we're obviously early this week, with the squads being announced tomorrow rather than today. Are you expecting anybody to be back from Leeds, or do you think it'll be similar to the Catalan game?
There's been nothing announced other than I believe that Myler and Ward will be back. From speaking to Stevie last week, he said that he'd be back, and Myler. They were both out of the Catalan game because I think it's the second concussion they've had, especially for Myler this season. So we had a longer return to play protocol to come through. But I believe him and Ward and Myler will be back. Other than that, nothing that I know of. Ryan Hall hopefully back from Denver, but like you say, not 100% sure.
And obviously, we've still got another day before the squads are announced, so you could sign some Featherstone players.
Gareth Hawks, maybe, we'll see.
that would be very interesting.
Be
yeah, that would be very interesting. Joe, how do you see this game going on Thursday from a Leeds perspective? You've pretty much already said that you don't expect Leeds to win. Have they got a chance?
Well, I don't expect Leeds to win. I didn't expect Leeds to come even close to Saints though a couple of weeks back in what was a superb game. It seems to be that Leeds have still got that ability to turn it on in the big games. They can't beat Huddersfield, they can't beat Catalan, but they can push Saints very, very close. So it's another case of I wouldn't be overly surprised whatever way the game went. If we won it, if we snatched it, I wouldn't be surprised. If you put 20, 30 points on us, I wouldn't be surprised. If they can put the performance in like they did against St Helens and the first half against Catalan, then yes, they've got a fighting chance. But it'll definitely be still be a close game if that's the case. I hope it's not a game too far for the young kids again.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Wigan have still got some injuries to contend with, and we've got Williams out and Josh Woods. Hopefully, will continue to take his opportunity and maybe step up in this game. Matt, how do you see this game going? From doing these videos for 6 months, you've got some kind of reputation. I mean, Philip says here, Matt getting carried away. Surely not. How is this possible for you to have such a reputation after only doing videos?
I don't know. Lots of people get reputations from videos, though. Just ask Joel Tompkins.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
What Joe says about Leeds turning it on in big games, this is what worries me, because I think Wigan are a bit like Viagra for Leeds. That they're always up for us. They're all the Rhinos always come at us full horn, don't they? And that always bothers me. That really worries me. And it's like a couple of weeks ago, I wasn't that concerned about Hull, because Hull seemed to be riding high, and Wigan were a little bit down in the dumps. That didn't bother me. A Leeds team that's not been doing so well, and them coming to Wigan, that bothers me more.
Okay. Well, how do you see the game going? Paul says on here, do you know Paul? Because it sounds like you do. Matt's a good character. Would like to see someone like him on Sky.
Fine, I'll take that. I don't know who is he.
Well, yeah, I'm going to check later on. You're typing away under a false alias here. I take your point, Paul. I think Matt would be fantastic on Sky. I think Matt would be better as. Do you remember the old Golden Gamble guy who sadly passed away a few years ago?
Golden Gamble Harrison.
That's the one. I think we need to bring that back, and we need to get Matt a golden suit, because Matt on that DW pitch at half-time doing the golden gamble draw would be incredible. Matt, how do you see the game going on Thursday? I assume a Wigan win?
Yes, yeah. Wigan 23, Leeds 22, drop goal, Romain Navarrete.
Of course. Joe, if that's news to you, just basically that's what happens every week on this show. Is Romain Navarrete kicks a drop goal. Gareth, how do you see? Yeah, and a 1 point win normally, or certainly we have to have an odd number. But yeah, Paul. I mean, Matt's typing quickly under the Paul alias here. He says it's better than having statistics shoved down your throat from Clark. Yeah, you're not wrong there, Paul. Actually, Gareth, how do you see the game going on Thursday?
I don't know how to follow that up, to be honest.
It's just not.
Lost for words. I think we're going to win and win comfortably, to be honest. I think Leeds are in a bit of a rut at the moment, and it's difficult to get out. Winning's a great habit in a team sport, but losing's a dreadful one to shake off. And although Leeds have been unlucky, I think the fact that they have been unlucky and only lost games by a few points is perhaps a little bit more demoralising for their confidence than the fact it's not like they're getting flogged by 40 points every week. However, I just think Wigan will be too strong at home. Wigan's record against Leeds at home is pretty good, whereas our record at Headingley is rubbish. Other than this year, we haven't won there for donkey's years. Our record at the DW is pretty decent, so I could see Wigan winning by 15 or 20 points, to be honest. Not with a Romain Navarrete winning drop goal, unfortunately, Matt. I hate to rain on your parade there, buddy, but no.
You lead your words.
One day.
Even with Leeds having, as Joe said, Ward, who's a great young talent, and Richie Marler, who started the season off really, really well. but has sort of fallen away, like you say, because of a couple of injuries, and hasn't replicated that early season form. I totally agreed with what Joe said earlier, that Leeds' problem is they've got no real leaders on the pitch. Whereas they've always had a real, in their successful years, they've had a core spine of players that have been there, done that, and got the T-shirt. Yeah. Every team goes through this kind of transition period. Wigan went through it a few years ago.
We'll probably be going through it again next year.
I'm not quite so sure, but I don't think it's as bad as that, to be honest. Although, if you don't believe everything you read, us lazy journalists that have to League Express. But no, I think we're going to win by, even with Marler and Ward back, we're going to win by 20 points.
Yeah, without sort of go. Sorry, Joe.
Go on.
So I was just going to say, without going over what Gareth said, I completely agree with what Gareth said there. I think a point win for Wigan, but I do think this point that Callum's just made. The first game, we've had 7 away games, so being back at the DW Stadium, I think might be exactly what we need at this moment in time to get our mojo back a little bit. Sorry, Joe, you were going to say something then.
I was going to say that the injury thing for Leeds, it's annoying, but you look at the likes of Hull, who've had more than the fair share of injuries, and you look at Cass, who last week beat you despite having loads of injuries. It's not an excuse that should be being used, really. Hull have had all the back division out barring Shaw, and they're still up in the top 4, top 5. Cass have been bereft. Luke Gale's been missing, one of the best players in competition. I think last week they played with 8 prop forwards in the 17 or something stupid like that.
Yeah,
and they still won. It's finding a way to win. I think it's an easy excuse, personally, to make. But
particularly with a youth system like Leeds have and Wigan have, you want to give youth an opportunity, and when you give them that opportunity and it doesn't work, that sometimes can be the issue. What 2 points that I want to make before we move on to we have this thing, Joe, called Macaulay's moment. Where basically, for some reason, we decide to give Matt the camera for a few minutes, and he either gives us some wonderful insight into his the strange going-ons in his head. Before we do that, I want to just get a quick opinion from everybody and how you thought the Denver test went in America and how you thought that was received. Matt, I assumed you watched it. Were you entertained by the game? Do you think the Denver test that should be going on ahead next year? Do you think this is a good thing for the game?
Yes, I loved the game. I loved the fact that every time the ball was kicked, it bounced off the moon. I just thought it was thrilling. It was entertaining. It was the right outcome. I do worry a little bit about player welfare, to be honest, playing at that altitude. But I think they managed it really well with the breaks. And it was interesting. I quite liked those little breaks and the little kind of chats that went on. I didn't mind that at all. It all felt a little bit exotic.
Gareth, were you entertained by it? Do you think this is the new frontier for rugby league in the USA?
I don't know about the new frontier, but obviously for someone that lives outside the traditional heartland area like I do in Cornwall, expansion is something I've always been an advocate of. It always gets my back up when people say things like, "Well, there's clubs in the heartlands that are struggling for money. You shouldn't be looking to take." That's just a nonsense excuse. That is just because clubs can't get their house in order. That's we should be trying to grow our sport. If that means that some of the heartland clubs not fall by the wayside, but have to cut their cloth accordingly, that's nothing to do. Clubs, and I'm going to use an example like Whitehaven have been the club that have been in the press is really struggling. A Cumbrian club, a traditional heartland area. They can't cut their cloth accordingly. The RFL shouldn't say, "Oh no, we can't take a test to America." That's just which is some of the things that I've seen written this week. We should be looking to grow our game. Our product is a fantastic product. They say rugby league is the greatest game, and I will argue till I'm blue in the face that it is. So we must take it to different areas. I mean, I think Wayne Bennett's comments in these. I mean, Wayne Bennett's great with the press, but I thought he actually said what he did say. You know, he never says a lot, but what he does say is quite telling. I thought his comments were that if the game doesn't expand, it will be dead within 20 years without an international, a vibrant international game was perhaps a little bit sensationalist, but he's got a point, hasn't he? You know, we should be. What did it say? You know, look at what happened when State of Origin was mooted. Everyone said, "Oh, it never worked." State of Origin is arguably the greatest set of games in rugby of either code, I think. You know,
absolutely. You only need to look at the TV audiences, the crowds that they get. The fact that the Aussies put that ahead of international rugby, I think, says everything about that, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I would always advocate expansion. Look, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't perfect, and I agree with Matt that obviously the player welfare could have been an issue. I think the fact it was almost played in 4 quarters rather than 2 halves was good. And if that's what they've got to do, it doesn't matter if you bend the rules to accommodate where you were. But I just thought it was great, and it was on prime time, free-to-air television, 9:30 on a Saturday night after the football. Now, we've berated Sky for wanting to play Leeds and Wigan on the same night as England play Belgium, but I thought whoever scheduled that got it spot on. Started at 9:30, all the football had finished, free-to-air telly. Yeah, I think the crowd of 20,000 was really, really encouraging. But the problem with rugby league is we tend to do something for a little while, and then if it doesn't quite take off at the rate we expect, we sort of give up. You know, it's like when we tried to bring Yorkshire and Lancashire back a few years ago. And then I think the crowds were rubbish for the second year, so we thought, oh, we'll scrap that. Well, you need to stick at it, you know, because like I say, I'll go back to Origin. The Aussies wouldn't have stuck with State of Origin because it wasn't really a success for 5, maybe 10 years until the Aussie public really bought into it. And, you know, so yeah, I think we should stick at it. I really do.
I mean, I think that's the important thing. You know, just put Nate's comment on there. I think everyone knows my opinion on rugby league in America. I'm a massive fan of it, and the infectious. Saying Nate is infectious doesn't sound very good. I know that, but his enthusiasm is infectious when you talk to him. And the fact that they've got 3 tests in 3 years at Denver gives you scalability. You can see that hopefully next year we increase the crowd from 19,000. Year 3 it increases year on year. The interest will get higher and higher, and I think that's the good thing. Denver might be a bit of an odd place, I think, particularly when the rugby in America is played mainly on the East Coast, to go somewhere a little bit more inland than that, potentially a little bit different. But Joe, quickly your comments before we move on to give the camera to Matt. I know he's itching to sort of put on a display for us. Do you think this is a good thing, rugby league in America?
I think it's a brilliant thing. I've spoken to a few Toronto fans from my site, and they were thinking it was just brilliant that some of the biggest players in the world were going over there. You look at the people were saying that the crowd was going to be pitiful, and yet it looked empty, but 20,000 people there in a new place where it's not been before. You're not going to get that if it was played over here. You won't get that from mid-season international. You don't get that from those Super League games or World Cup games last year. It's a superb attendance.
I mean, one of the things I think about the attendance that I found interesting by what Steve Mascord said, the Aussie journalist, was a lot of American sports have this mentality of you don't get into the game for the start of it as an optional.
Yeah.
You know, there was lots of people still queuing up once the game had started, and that's just a cultural thing in America when it comes to sports.
Yeah, I agree. I just think that all it will do is grow. And I think some people are just scared of it growing, which is stupid because it's those people who lament there not being enough money in the sport. And if you can break America, that'll bring all sorts of money into the sport.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for watching us this evening. Gareth, thank you so much for taking the time out of your evening from what I'm sure is a very busy time for you at work at this moment in time with the hotel.
Yeah, no worries. No worries.
And I apologise for saying lazy journalism. You know that wasn't intended at you.
I've had worse said to me over the past week, to be honest.
I feel awful for saying that now when we've got a journalist on.
It's a fair comment. It is a fair comment. But like I say, journalists have been sort of banged with a big stick, rightly or wrongly, over the past week.
I mean, Williams will get announced that he's moved to Catalans next week, and it'll be me with egg on my face, and everyone will just winding me up. So don't worry about that. Joe, thank you. Yeah, Chris Radlinski's been stitching me up, hasn't he?
Played you perfectly, hasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know what?
Phil Wilkinson's writing the exclusive as we speak.
Phil's gone very quiet. Yeah, I wonder why. Yeah, it's a massive stitch up. Joe, thank you so much for taking the time again to join us. What you're doing is fantastic. And I encourage everyone to go on to getonsideblog.com, read the stuff that Joe's doing. Like you said at the start of the show, a lot of it is about mental health and state of mind, and it's okay to talk that kind of thing. And obviously Stevie Ward's magazine, what's it called? Mentality?
Mentality, yeah.
Yeah, so have a read of some of the stuff that Joe's doing. Yes, Paul, Matt, you're typing again, aren't you? Give Matt the camera. Joe, I'm trying to say thanks, Matt. Joe, thank you so much. I'm sure we'll have you on later on in the season. Unfortunately, this might be the last Wigan Leeds game of the year if you do go down to the middle late spot. Get you on to talk about something else. Matt, over to you. You weren't with us last week when we did the cast preview. So no. we were there for the whole preview. We sort of tongue-in-cheek kind of said, Joe's gone now, it's just the three of us. You jokingly said, or we kind of jokingly said, does anybody want to sponsor us for Macaulay's moment? And Stuart, who, you know, from the kindness of his heart, offered to sponsor you. So the Macaulay's moment is now sponsored by, we said last week, it's a very niche sponsorship. It's sponsored by All Seasons Gardening in Maryport. So it's very, very niche. But if anybody is in need of a front bush trimming or other such gardening items, it does patios as well. He told me on Sunday night it does patios. Get in touch with Stuart. He always watches this. I'm sure he'll put a comment with a link on it. Again, very, very niche. I guess our viewing numbers in Maryport may be limited, but if you are in the Cumbria area and you do need your garden attended to, Stuart Minnis is your man. Matt, over to you. What have you got for us?
Thank you. I've got a prediction poem sponsored by All Seasons Gardening Maryport. This is it. The Rhinos haven't lately been finding great form, and some of their performances have attracted much scorn. But when they play against Wigan, they always give it the big un. So we need to show them what they can do with that horn.
Is that an actual diagram of a horn there as well?
I've drawn a horn as well, yeah.
Excellent.
Genuine rhino horn.
That's I've just put Stuart's work Facebook page there as well. If anybody in Maryport area who was looking at the patio earlier today and thought that needs some treatment, there's Stuart's Facebook page. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. We're probably going to be off air for a week or so as my wife is giving birth to our first child in the morning, and I am about to enter into a world of the unknown, basically, and Wigan Fan TV. We were going to try and do, was it Mark who had the idea of doing a Wigan Fan TV from the Labour ward?
That I would watch.
Yeah, that could be interesting. Even as I said last week, Gareth, this board is like 8 foot behind me. Trying to get this into the house when you've got a 9-month pregnant lady was very interesting, and it has to be well hidden now. It has to be folded away. But thank you everybody for watching. Everybody, if you want to subscribe to the videos, type Wigan into the comments, and you'll automatically be subscribed to the future videos when we're back on the air. And thank you very much, guys, and thanks for everybody for watching again.